welcome to Hashgraph TV. Join us as we explore in each episode how the digital future is being built, powered by Hedera Hashgraph.
Welcome to today's conversation on Hashgraph TV. I'm Mikael Björn, the CTO of the Hashgraph Association. The Hashgraph Association works with companies and organizations globally to drive innovation using Hedera's cutting-edge distributed ledger technology, or DLT. Today, I'm excited to speak with Simon Jones, the Chief Commercial Officer at Baanx, a leader in custodial and non-custodial crypto payments. Simon, it's great to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. So a little bit before we get into the details, could you briefly introduce yourself and tell us a bit about Baanx and its role in shaping the future of financial services?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Baanx. So I look after basically kind of relationships, marketing, sales, strategy, and kind of bits of product as well. Really kind of effectively pushing forward in terms of bringing seamless, frictionless payments into the world of crypto. So what we kind of specialize in is trying to marry up two different worlds, where you have that traditional world, which is generally analog, that people think is digital but isn't, or they digitalize an analog process, and the digital world that we're all building. I've been here for about 3 years now. Prior to that, I worked for a VC for a number of years, and prior to that, I originally started off in finance. I spent most of my career kind of effectively at that kind of intersection between consumer, data, and transaction. So that's it. Based in London, but like most people who work in crypto, I spend most of my life on an airplane.
I feel the same thing. So a number of things that you also have been mastering is to create a lot of really interesting partnerships. So you have like Ledger, MetaMask, OneInch, etc. But one of the most cool things we've seen in the press regarding you and so what's happening with Baanx was the partnership with Mastercard. So and creating completely new ways of paying using crypto. So is there any way you can tell us a little bit how that collaboration started and what it means for the evolution of digital payments and how you're the sort of key player now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've worked with people like Mastercard for, I guess, about 5 years or so now. Like a lot of traditional finance businesses, when they first started out, you mentioned the word crypto, you didn't get your emails or phone calls returned. And then a few years ago, that started to change, and people like Mastercard started to actually have a dedicated crypto team. But what we've been talking to them for a while, and what we said to them was, look, the reality of it is, custodial crypto payments, which are almost like shadow banking, right? You have to make a deposit to be able to have the ability to spend, like Coinbase or Crypto.com card. Actually negate most of the benefit of self-custody, or actually completely remove the benefit of self-custody. And what we wanted to do really was drive another generation of payment services where you could have direct spend from self-custody, where you didn't have to lock that up. So effectively, user can connect via smart contract, user controls, user has full custody, no lockup of their funds, and the user goes to spend. So we started talking to Mastercard, I guess about 2 years ago for this, and they basically started off saying, "Hey, we'd like to tackle this," and we said to them, "Well, funny enough, we already have. We just haven't shown anyone yet." So we had this great meeting actually at Consensus in 2023 in Austin, where we walked away thinking, "Hey, this is pretty cool," and then had a number of follow-ups, and then really, I guess it's probably a year and a half of fairly intensive work between us and Mastercard, working with other people as well, like MetaMask, because obviously we needed to get people in for this. We need to get the wallets engaged, and that's where people like Mastercard have been valuable to us. And I think what does it look like behind the scenes? Realistically, it's us going into Mastercard network saying, "Hey, we want to do this." Then Mastercard working out ways that they can make this work on their network, and that's a whole range of things, from visibility of asset, chain analysis, everything else that they have to be comfortable with, down to fraud protections, tools, accepting the idea that actually this product will be global, so giving us the permission to actually start doing things in different parts of the world, and also allowing us to do things around kind of some of the authorization windows and things like that to make sure that they're compatible with the performance of various blockchains. So it's a pretty much a 360. It's a slightly surreal moment when I woke up on LinkedIn and saw that the CEO of Mastercard had tagged us in post, which I thought was quite funny. But it's been great. And I think, it's the start of an emergent trend where you've got these two worlds coming together and saying, hey, we should talk to each other, which is really exciting for us.
That's also really interesting. So then sort of we started to have a chat as well, sort of looking at Hedera from your perspective as being one of the more sort of say energy efficient or sort of fast DLTs around. So that would sort of support your use case much more in that. So if we look at it, for example, on the energy efficient side, so Hedera's network is about 1,000 times more energy efficient than Visa's network. So and this could also be a game changer for sustainability focused financial services. So how do you see Hedera playing a role in these future projects, particularly in terms of payment sustainability and efficiency?
I think first and foremost, Hedera is cheap and fast, right? It's low latency, high frequency, which is great, right? The second area is a number of benefits, like, for example, being able to pay gas fees in fiat, which mean that you don't have to be a native crypto user to actually access the product, which I think is a huge benefit. But taking that forward, I think when you look at the kind of energy and the sustainability piece, right? Obviously, you claim to be 1,000 times faster than our partners at Visa. I won't comment on that, but obviously, well played. I think when we look at, there's an article a few years ago in The Economist called "Big Data is the New Oil," right? And actually, the argument about it was that the characteristics of data were mirroring the characteristics of the oil industry. So we all need it. We have a dependency on it. We all struggle to get around if it doesn't work. However, there is this environmental footprint to it, right? And when you look at the idea that the average consumer data footprint grows by about 25% per annum, because put simply, people load things into the cloud and they don't delete them. We're kind of looking at that long-term environmental benefit piece here, where if you build systems in a smart, sustainable, energy efficient way, then in years to come, we're not going to have this huge drag on resource that is coming from the way in which a lot of the traditional cloud infrastructure has been built, right? So to me, I think that the way in which this is really exciting is that if you go into someone, you say, look, ultimately, whatever your views on sustainability are, you say that basic principle: use less energy equals better outcome, right, for all participants. And as long as you can kind of push that equation, it makes a lot of sense. I also think that when you get into that idea, you have to look at the idea, especially in financial services, right, that effectively, data is immutable, right? So if I'm transacting now and the business is still around 100 years' time, I've got to have a way of storing that data that's effective and efficient. Yeah. And if I end up with the world's largest data footprint, you can almost see data, in some extent, mirroring things like real estate, right? So if you're a bank in Europe, you had this legacy infrastructure piece that you had all this property on high streets that you don't want anymore. And it's a huge cost, right? And you've got to work out how to get rid of it. It takes a long time and costs a lot of money, right? And you can always see data mirroring that characteristic, where in 20 years' time, you could see people like yourself, Mikael, sat in the office saying, well, how do I manage this data issue? I've got, 87,000 terawatts of data that I don't use, but I have to keep. So I think anything that mitigates the risk is good.
That's actually an awesome response. So another thing that I sort of saw on the press releases that you put out was that it was not only Mastercard, it was actually MetaMask involved as well. So is that because it has the biggest footprint of them all, or is it any other reason you went with the MetaMask for the wallet side?
So we were agnostic, right, when it comes to wallet. But obviously, the one thing that makes commercial sense for us is to build with wallets at scale. And I think one of the things that was obviously attractive about MetaMask was, it's a strong brand, right? It's a well-trusted brand.
Yep.
It's probably, if you look at that kind of first-generational wallet mixture, they're one of the few that are actually still around and growing, right? I also think that, within the broader consensus ecosystem, there's a lot of attractive propositions there where you have this ability to kind of adopt a little bit of a thought leadership mantle with them.
Yep.
So we always took a view that, we wanted to launch with one of really the top 3 wallets. And, we were lucky enough to obviously sign MetaMask as the launch partner for that, which is great. Now, the interesting thing about this, and this is one thing that I would point out, that if you think about this, if I have a payment card, like you get via a smart contract, in reality, I can connect that to multiple stores of value, right? It doesn't just need to be connected to my MetaMask account. I could sign a transaction from a Trust Wallet account if I wanted to, using that card. So realistically, what you're doing is you're creating this environment where you're saying that we're really kind of helping transform the wallet world into non-custodial neobanks, where we're doing the last mile to get down to the consumer.
Yeah, that's also interesting. So there is a connection. So one of the things that we've been talking to is sort of a movement in sort of the whole industry regarding stablecoins. For example, we always talk about sort of USDC, USD, all these sort of that people feel are real money. They are still crypto, but it's sort of the feeling that, sort of, from my perspective, one of the things that the stablecoin idea translates is sort of people's sort of thought about how they perceive money today, and the stablecoin is sort of the same thing for them. So it sort of translates the trust from sort of the real, as you said, analog world to the digital world.
Mm-hmm.
So and a lot of the things that we've done on Hedera has been to drive the ease of building stablecoins as well. So one of the things that I'm seeing right now, and we would love to have your view on it, is that we're seeing a lot of sort of push for stablecoins being used in a lot of different use cases. Mm-hmm. So, for example, one of the things that I saw was that it can actually represent real money instead of points in a loyalty point program.
Mm.
So I guess that's also something that ties into the business model that you are working with.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the core things that we've always tried to focus on is this idea that if you can price it, you should be able to exchange it, right? So you can apply that to anything from an air mile to a stablecoin. But I think where stablecoins, are particularly interesting is that actually, if you start to bundle a few different elements, so you have like a blockchain wallet, for example, right? And you then have the ability to conduct peer-to-peer. And if you can do peer-to-peer on using stables where you have a fixed receipt of value, right, you could start to decentralize a lot of finance, right? And one of the things that I think really, in my world, where I kind of comprehensively disagree with a number of people in our industry on, is this idea that people have this view that kind of Bitcoin price will dictate consumer adoption. Well, in my mind, it doesn't. Right? It's the products that we build that we put into a user's hands, and the benefits that user gets for using that product that will dictate adoption. So the one that I always play to is, for example, Revolut, right? I think Revolut is a great example of a business that started off by giving a consumer something that they wanted. So in my case, it was this very simple thing called Forex. I travel a lot. I'm sat next to my friend. He's showing me the fact that he's paying virtually nothing to spend money abroad whilst I'm spending 5 or 6%. So obvious thing, get Revolut. And I think that where stablecoins really come into their own are threefold. One is cross-border remittance, right? So I think, I repeat this a lot, but one of the things that I always say is that for me, we have to think about changing concepts and time. And I want to turn things like Swift into being the equivalent of a fax machine, right? because I send something on Swift, it's slow, it's expensive, it's inefficient. And I send something, I send you a stable coin now into Zurich, and it could be in your wallet in a second. You can go and spend it in a second, right? And that should be virtually free and seamless. And to me, I want to turn Swift into a fax machine. I could send you a fax, but why would anyone send a fax when you can send an email, right? And we have to kind of think about the evolution of concept. I think the second part that stablecoins become really interesting for is effectively working around the kind of monopolization of the internet. So if you can start to tether money to product, you can start to work around some of the more egregious rules of our friends at Apple and Google around revenue sharing, which creates an environment where, as a product creator, you should be feeling that you are incentivized to build outside of those guardrails. And I think that the third thing that a lot of people forget about really is the idea that you can start to build wallet technology that effectively becomes smart, right? So one of the things that fascinates me is programmatic yield, right? The idea that I could choose a stable coin, put it in my wallet, forget about it, but know that it's doing something for me, that it's working for me. That to me is like the evolution of money, because funny enough, the technology is doing the thing that I didn't do because I'm too lazy, like most consumers, to actually interact with the product in a way where I'm going to get best benefit. The idea that technology could drive that is really interesting. And stable coins really are phenomenal. But there's still one major issue with stables, which is FX. If I want to swap $1 billion of USDC into the euro equivalent of USDE, it'll move the price. So once we start to see that next generation of infra come through, I think that digitalization of cash will be phenomenal. And it will mean different things to different people, but one of the analogies I use is just imagine that that physical wallet that everyone used to carry suddenly becomes a digital wallet that you now carry, and this thing becomes your wallet, which for most people it already is. It's just you haven't quite ported the functionality.
No, so somewhere between sort of the analog world and the digital world when it comes to sort of using your phone as a payment, because it's sort of just a front end solution for your back end sort of analog cash system.
Exactly.
So, and from my perspective, I'm also really, really interested because it's sort of going to be so much more inclusive for people that don't have sort of access to banking or financial services as well, because it sort of gives you the opportunity to have things like sort of. I remember when I was out traveling, so a lot of the things I've done is sort of being out in Turkey, Vietnam, and sort of even in Venezuela, but countries that has shall we say, a little bit of a challenge when it comes to their financial systems. People have a tendency to move to places where they actually can use sort of technology to solve that issue, and seeing that you have sort of goat herders in Turkey having Bitcoin wallets, and they sort of and they're living sort of way off. They don't have sort of any access to other facilities, but that's what they have because they need to save the money. That's really, really cool.
It is really cool, and I think depending on who you listen to, there's somewhere between 1.2 and 1.3 billion people in the world, right, who don't have access to a basic range of financial services, right? So there's a huge gap, and there's also a gap that you're saying that people are clearly not targeting that market. That's why it exists. But just because somebody's from a certain country or not wealthy doesn't mean that ultimately they shouldn't have access to financial services. So if they've got a phone, why not give them a bunch of stuff they can connect to a wallet that gives them effectively the same functionality? And sure, maybe they have got their Bitcoin wallet, but equally, maybe they want to complement that with the ability to spend Bitcoin or, receive money from a friend abroad or whatever, right? And if you can start to kind of break down...
Just storing money, it's just storing value. It actually is something that you will do as you will do today with your sort of really analog wallet. So thinking about moving ahead a bit. So not giving away too much, but what are you seeing the future for Baanx and Hedera moving forward? So there's some cool stuff happening, I guess, that from your point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I mean, without giving too much away, big fans of Hedera, and especially obviously Hashgraph. and they've got a very good tech team, I understand. But I think we see a good fit with Hashgraph and what we're doing, because obviously we partner with people to bring product to market. So there's a lot of people that we partner with who they love, for example, the way that Hedera is validated, right? I.e., you can't initiate a transaction from a sanctioned country, right? There's a lot of comfort in that. I think also, the characteristics of Hedera in terms of speed, cost, uptime, efficiency, block process, etc., are fundamentally compatible with the idea that you could decentralize a payments network onto Hedera, or even a stock market, or whatever you want to do, right? Anything where you need that frequency and latency, or high frequency, I should say, you guys can service, which is great. And then I think taking it beyond that point, we see that something like Hedera, Hashgraph specifically within that mix will become a kind of integral part of some of the product that we're building. So at the moment we're looking at, obviously, we've just launched the non-custodial world of payments. We're looking at revamping our lending products to move them on chain. So there might be a small hint there about what we're looking at. We're also looking at kind of building out a toolkit for some of our partners to be able to say to them, look, you don't have these components, but we have these components, and they're built on certain chain, and you can use those as part of your mix. So overall, I think there's a lot that we can do. I think there's a lot that we can work on. I think you and I have spoken many a time for many hours about things like decentralized digital identity. One issue with that, of course, is how do you validate it, right? And Hashgraph looks like a great fit for that. Equally, how do I get push payment capabilities on chain to wallet receive address? Well, Hashgraph's a great one for that kind of play, because you don't need to pay the gas fee in crypto. You can pay in fiat. So a whole bunch of kind of front end, mid end, back end stuff that we will be moving and building with you guys going forwards.
Sounds like we have a very interesting future going forward. So it's been awesome to talk to you, because we're going to wrap up now. So if sort of all the things we've spoken about, so if you were giving the audiences sound bites, like one sentence sort of summarizing all the things that we've discussed right now, what would that be?
Let's replace banking with technology.
Awesome. On Hedera. Yeah.
Let's replace banking with Hedera. Yeah. How's that?
That sounds even better from my side.
Absolutely.
Simon, thanks so much for your time. It was awesome, as always. Happy to have you around. Really looking forward to us making some really good waves in this industry.
Likewise.
So thank you so much, and have a great day.
Take care. Pleasure to see you, as always.